But Congressman, welcome into the broadcast. I have to ask you this because I've been told to ask you this by she who must be obeyed. That would be Mrs. Anderson, and she would love to know, when are we going to do away with daylight savings time?
Well, that's a great question. We're waking up right now to a little bit of a dark and also rainy day throughout the West Texas region. So it has been a proposed piece of legislation. It has not moved since I've been in Congress, and I know it was there before. But wouldn't it be nice to have one set of time instead of multiple, and be more like Arizona, maybe?
And yeah, we realize this is not the most important thing in the world, but to a lot of people it is. So anyway, just a little thing there. And the AM radio thing is getting a little bit closer, I know, too.
Well, it is. And Craig, we've talked about this multiple times, but it is passed through committee. We're awaiting a vote on the House to then send it to the Senate. I think it's going to be something that will eventually pass, but we did pass it through committee. And you think about some of these really critical times where you have storms and you need an emergency message to get out. At times, AM radio is the only thing. Cell phones don't work. Maybe you don't have electricity, so your vehicle is the only way to get AM radio, and you'll be able to hear those emergency messages on KWEL, broadcast throughout the area, which can be really important. You don't know when we're going to need that, but I am convinced, especially flying as a fighter pilot, communications, you had to prepare for the worst. You had to prepare for an alternative plan, and that's why we are passionate about this legislation.
I can only imagine being in a fighter jet, and I don't guess we're doing this, but I can only imagine being in a fighter jet and seeing a drug cartel speedboat down a few feet from you and saying, okay, I got this.
Well, I haven't talked to anybody that's flown those missions, but I can imagine that they are pretty intense, and it's about time that we did something about those cartels that have been with free access moving across the Gulf of America for years, bringing drugs to our shores. So I applaud President Trump for what he is doing in that regard.
And I know that right now, the latest numbers he put out yesterday, 3,000 cartel leaders, gang leaders arrested, confiscating over 91 tons of illegal drugs. Think about that, 91 tons. That's a bunch.
It's a bunch. And you think back to the previous 4 years where how many times did I go to the border? How many times did I see literally on one night thousands of people coming across? And every sheriff, every law enforcement, every Border Patrol officer told me, he said, well, these are the people that we're not worried about because they're coming basically to the port of entry. He said, go half a mile into the woods there, and that's what you're worried about because they are the ones that are bringing the drugs through. I mean, we remember on your show I told you about an experience where there was a 2-year-old child left out basically for dead in the middle of a field that was luckily found. And those were the horrific things that happened. I mean, that was just not too long ago that happened in our country where the drugs were coming through freely. And we have a president who is committed to stopping that, to arresting those people, to deporting them back to their countries because they don't belong here.
All right. And we applaud everything that you guys are doing in Washington to get rid of this drug mess, and the border is a lot more secure. Would you say the border's almost to the point of being virtually closed down now?
Absolutely. I mean, it's been months since we had somebody who was let into this country without the right reasons, without the right paperwork, without the right process. I mean, yes, the border is secure, and we knew that was not a legislative change. That was not a function of changing the laws. That was a function of enforcing the laws. We knew that. That's why we did what we did as far as impeachment to Alejandro Mayorkas, because he failed to uphold the laws. So absolutely, it's secure.
All right, 20 away from the hour now of 8 o'clock on AM 1070 KWEL and FM 107.1. Congressman August Pfluger is on the radio with us. Congressman, the shutdown, of course, the Senate blocking yet another bill to pay essential workers, and I know this is becoming to the point of being a little bit more serious all the time, but do you hear anything? What are your thoughts?
Well, I had a conversation yesterday with Senator Mark Wayne Mullen from Oklahoma a great senator, common sense, hard worker, and he basically told me, he said, no, it doesn't look like that they're coming to their senses. And I'm reminded about your previous question about the border. I mean, this shutdown is hindering everything, but it's also making work and life harder for those Customs and Border Protection officers, those that may not get a paycheck at the end of the month because of the shutdown. They're still going to work. They're still doing their mission, and that's very difficult. So, we thought after the anti-American protest in Washington, D.C. that they would. Quite frankly, in other conversations with the White House that I've had this week, I think Democrats are in a really bad spot because they don't have what they call an off-ramp to save face. I mean, we want them to come and vote to fund the military, to vote to fund USDA, to vote to fund and give a paycheck to Border Patrol. And they realize how bad this looks for them. And by the way, other benefits like SNAP and WIC and things like that are in jeopardy now, which when the shoe was on the other foot, Craig, you and I talked about this when Pelosi was the speaker, when Biden was in charge, Republicans kept the government open. We used other tools to cut spending and to attack some of the different things that they were doing, but the maturity in the room now with Schumer's shutdown is at an all-time low.
And as you have pointed out too, these Democrats are against now. They're against what they totally were in favor of a few years ago. So it's all a plan to, I guess, they have to save face for Chuck Schumer.
That's right. He's got a problem, and now we know that AOC runs the Senate. AOC, the shadow of her, has scared Schumer into doing something that is so destructive. And listen to what Catherine Clark, the number 2 Republican in the House from Massachusetts, she's the whip. She's the number two Democrat in the House. And she said, yes, hardworking American families are struggling, but that's our leverage. She said families are her leverage, are the Democrats' leverage. That is disgusting and truly despicable to say. Families are my priority. I go to Washington and I vote because of families, to make sure that they're stronger, that they can prosper, that they can raise their kids. And apparently to Democrats, they are leverage. They are nothing more than leverage. That's what we're seeing right now.
We'll bring in a call, and welcome into the broadcast. You're on the morning show on KWEL with Congressman August Pfluger.
Hey, Congressman, how are you this morning, sir?
Good morning. Doing great. Thank you.
One question real quick. Everybody that works in the oil field industry has to take a drug test. Why can't y'all do something about all these people that are on SNAP or make them take that the same way we do? We have to take it to keep our job.
Well, it's a great question. I love where you're going with that, and I agree with that we should have those types of things and policies in place. We've made some progress. That has been proposed. It hasn't garnered the support yet, but we will reattack that. And I'll tell you what we have done is we've put in place work requirements. So people who are receiving federal benefits now have to work 80 hours a month. And 80 hours, you're talking 80 hours in the oil field, that was 1 week. So 80 hours a month is really nothing, and that's that really is what we're finally doing, and I love where you're going with that. And you're right. Most jobs require you to pass some sort of drug test to make sure that you're doing what you said you're going to do. We should do that as a government, and I love that. We will continue to push for that. And by the way, Craig, may I give some news to the Permian Basin about what happened this week in Midland and Odessa?
Please.
If you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for a couple of years, I've been asking Maria Bartiromo, the reporter for Fox, on Fox Business, Mornings with Maria, and then on Sunday mornings, she does the Sunday Morning Futures show on Fox. I've asked her to come out. She did. We toured her around, showed her a frac job. I believe she also went to a rig, introduced her to oil and gas experts, engineers, leaders in the industry, and showed her through a series of meetings and interviews and on-site walkthroughs what this industry does, specifically what the Permian Basin has done through the shale revolution to become the most important, the largest secure supply of oil and gas in the entire world. She is going to air this interview, which I sat down with her at the Petroleum Museum in between Midland and Odessa, and others got a chance to walk around with her and also be interviewed. But she's going to air this interview on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week, and I believe it's going to be a 10-minute piece each day for 3 days. So we'll make sure that we get the word to you, but very excited about that. We finally have somebody who is going to communicate the extreme dominance that the Permian Basin has shown, and she is going to talk with a message about why energy security is so important, but specifically why the Permian Basin is the crown jewel of production in the United States.
So she had a chance to talk to people who really are in the business, boots on the ground, all that sort of thing, and she was able to really get some good information, I guess, and I assume she had an open mind about doing so that's good.
Well, it was great. She did have an open mind. We talked about things like price. We've heard some things, and even from the administration, of course, they want to lower the price of goods throughout the country, which is right. They need to bring inflation down, but we talked to her about why this mid-range band between $65 and $85, for instance, is healthy and helps you bring down the price of gasoline and groceries, but also allows us to continue to drill. So it was concepts like that, which aren't intuitive necessarily if you don't come out and talk to the people. I was very proud, though. She asked a lot of good questions, and she is going to report what we hope will be a good, strong, positive message, not just for the Permian Basin, but for all of oil and gas production.
Are you convinced, Congressman, that the administration is keenly aware of what's going on in the oil patch? In other words, drill, baby, drill is good and producing more oil than we have more of it. The price goes down at $61.90 right now, and most people out here would think we need to get that price a little bit higher.
Well, that was part of the reason we had Maria come to the Permian Basin, is because, I have heard some in the administration talk about $40 oil, and have told them, I said, that's not feasible. That doesn't exist anymore. And if that price goes to $40, it will quickly be at $100 or more. So we had to walk through that and show her why, especially in the horizontal drilling era, why this is so important. And these service companies, day in and day out, you're out there right now driving over to maybe a rig in the Delaware Basin. Thank you for what you do. We just tried to tell your story to Maria so that the rest of the country can have an idea of what that's like and how important it is.
We're with Congressman August Pfluger on cable AM 1070 and FM 107.1. Congress and the Senate still getting paid during the shutdown?
Well, I, like many others, am not, because I've asked that to be withheld, which is exactly what they will do. I'm not going to get paid until our federal workers and Border Patrol, military, and FAA workers get paid. So no. And I can tell you that most Republicans have taken that position, can't speak for the Democrats. But we want to get back to work. We want to get back to doing the business of the American people, which is why this is just, it really, and it's a first, Craig, where you had a clean continuing resolution, as Steve Scalise mentioned last week when he came on your show, and I love his leadership because he understands the Permian Basin. But this is a first for a clean continuing resolution to be the mechanism that shuts down the government. That's never happened. And Democrats, we know now, have done this for political reasons.
All right, and they are following the lead of the esteemed senior senator from New York, Charles Schumer. 10 away from 8 o'clock now on cable AM 1070 and FM 107.1. Do you see this thing ending anytime soon?
Well, it's hard to say. I don't think it's going to end this week and probably not next week. I think once we skip the paychecks for federal workers at the end of the month, I think that will ratchet up the pressure on Democrats that they will feel, because they are the party of big government. They are the party that has expanded government for years. And I think that those federal workers will begin to make some noise in places like Northern Virginia, and in other places where you have large federal workforces. We've done our job. We've voted to fund the government. We have voted to move this forward. I'm worried about national security. I'm worried about the threats around the world. I'm worried about our military and not being able to focus on the mission. So, it's hard to say. They really seem to be in a bad position, both on the policy side and politically.
All right, and we're about out of time here. 9 minutes away from 8 o'clock on KWEL AM 1070 and FM 107.1 with Congressman August Pfluger on the radio. Adrian, you're on the phone with us. Got any thoughts or questions?
I appreciate, the congressman.
Okay, Adrian can barely hear your phone.
I appreciate the congressman saying, that he's holding his paycheck. I mean, that's the right thing to do. So obviously, we have the right person in the seat. And then, having Maria come out and really look at what the Permian does. I mean, we are fueling the world, without a doubt. And, not only that, but a lot of families are taking advantage of what is so beautiful under the ground. And so, Congressman, thank you for that. I mean, obviously, we want this government to open up, and I know you're doing all that you can to make sure that happens. And so, once again, thank you for your work, and thank you for all you do.
Well, Adrian, thank you, and it's an honor to represent the best district in the entire country. And we know that, and my colleagues know that. The 50-plus colleagues that I've brought to the Permian Basin to go out and see a frac job or see a rig, understand what the men and women are doing every single day to provide energy dominance. And they also respect one other thing, Craig, and that is Friday Night Lights. And it's great to be thinking about that. I know it's going to be a little rainy tonight when Garden City plays Buena Vista and Fort Stockton visits Midland Greenwood. We'll be watching Odessa High versus Friendship, and then crosstown rivalries, Midland Lee and Permian will be playing each other. And then we're going to also watch as San Angelo Friday Night Lights lights up with Midland High coming over to San Angelo. So that's another thing that most of my colleagues will ask me about. Hey, do you represent the district where Friday Night Lights is? I said, yes, I sure do, and I'm very proud of that.
Football, and bring on the rain. You're supposed to play football in the rain anyway. What the heck's the difference? All right.
Well,
Congressman,
we the rain.
All right. We're out of time. Thank you so much. God bless you and your great family, and thanks for being a part of our broadcast, and thanks for the work.
Thanks, Craig. God bless this great district and this great country.
Thank you.